जय राधा माधव कुंजबिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदनंदन भक्तजनरंजन श्यामनतीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदनंदन भक्तजनरंजन यमुनतीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे हे राम राम हरे हरे जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपद Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Hare Ram Sankirtan Mahayagna ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dharati Satyantam Deham Shri Guru Shri Vatapara Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vintam Sri Advaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishnatam Devam Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Divina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haviti Ancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody to the Saturday Satsang. So last week we discussed chapter 1, we discussed up to verse 22. So before we start, does anybody remember what we discussed last week? I keep requesting every week, please make note of points that we discuss, because otherwise we tend to forget very easily. Anybody has any points noted for last week? We covered verses 16 through 22.
Hare Krishna, sir.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Yes.
Yeah, we discussed about that unwanted population, how it gets eliminated. You said it's due to collective karma of world. That this COVID example you gave, how the elimination happens, and blowing of different councils before war. And you said one beautiful point: one who takes the shelter of the Supreme Lord has nothing to fear, even in the midst of greatest calamities.
Yeah.
And Arjuna calls Krishna as Achyuta, and the meaning of that you explained. This is what I remember. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you so much. Anybody else has anything else to add? Yeah. So predominantly, I think we discussed this. So again, I continue to request everybody to please make your own notes, and if you participate, make this more interactive. I think it will benefit everybody. If you have questions or so thank you. Okay, so we're going to continue from verse 23. So actually, the climax of the first chapter. I don't know if we'll get there, but very interesting last few verses of that. So verse 23. Yotsamanana veksheham yai tetra samagataha dhartarashtrasya durbuddher yuddhe priyachikirshavaha. So Arjuna is talking to Krishna. So in the previous verse, Arjuna said, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I can see those who are present. And we discussed about how Arjuna, or why Arjuna calls Krishna Achyuta. So Arjuna and Krishna are friends, right? So Arjuna still, has not come to the or awareness, or he's not demonstrating his awareness of Krishna's supreme position, right? So he's still treating him as a friend and talking to him. So he says, please draw my chariot. So it's almost, sounded like an order. Actually, the Acharya says, like, draw my chariot, Krishna. So, and Krishna, so beautifully, like he does with all his relations, that he exchanges with his devotees. Krishna never is never concerned or bothered about his supreme position, right? This is the beauty about bhakti, relationship with Krishna, right? He is ready to reciprocate in whatever mood we want him to, right? So very beautifully, he just simply agrees. And Arjuna is saying here, let me see those who have come here to fight. Now, it was not that Arjuna did not know who are going to come on the battlefield, right? This is the beginning of the illusion that Arjuna was put into by Krishna. So though he knew, but at this point of time, he is being, more inspired by Krishna himself to actually, he wants to go and, see the people who are actually there for, who have come there to fight. And he's saying those who have come to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. So clearly we understand, right? So Duryodhana, he wanted to actually the kingdom was officially, rightfully belonged to Pandavas, because Yudhishthir Maharaj was the eldest of all the sons, right? Even amongst the Kauravas, right? But and rightfully he was supposed to become the king, but he was such a self-centered, evil-minded guy that he wanted to take away the take away the kingdom. Actually, in fact, what happens before the battle, Krishna requests Duryodhana, saying that why don't you just give this, it belongs to Yudhishthira. In fact, Pandavas also request Duryodhana, right, giving up their own concern. Just imagine, if we were in such a receiving end, would we go and ask somebody saying, give me this, this rightfully belongs to me, giving, without considering their ego, etc. Of course, I mean, Pandavas never had any ego, but Yudhishthir Maharaj goes and asks Duryodhana, saying, can you please give me some land? In fact, he says, just give us 5 villages. We are 5 of us. We are Kshatriyas. We are supposed to rule people, administer land order, and that's how we are supposed to live. That's our occupation. So please give us at least 5 villages. Duryodhana flatly refuses. He says, there's a tip of a needle, right? So he says, if the tip of the needle, even that, if you drive a tip of a needle into the land, into a piece of land, how much ever land that gets covered, even that much I'm not going to give. So flatly he refused. And unfortunately, so this battle became inevitable. So here Arjuna is saying evil-minded because he could have just simply avoided the war. So he's saying evil-minded because, because of Duryodhana, so many people are going to get killed in this battle. So Arjuna was such a soft-hearted Kshatriya, though he was a Kshatriya, because he was a devotee of the Lord, he was very soft-hearted. He did not want unnecessary violence. He was, still thinking, okay, is there any way to stop this battle? So verse 24, Sanjay Uvacha eva mukto Rishikesho Gudakeshena Bharata Senayorubayor Mudhye Sthapayitva Rathotamam. So Sanjay said, O descendant of Bharata, having thus been addressed by Arjuna. So Arjuna asked Krishna to place the chariot between the two armies. So just he says, just following his order, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of both the armies. Now in this verse, see, actually in Vedic Vedic way of life, everything had a meaning. So in fact, previously the way names used to be given used to be actually based on what kind of activities that person would do in his life. Right. And that is why, when you go to an astrologer, if, some of you would have had that, this one, newly born child, you go to an astrologer and you say, okay, which alphabet should the name be? And in fact, previously they used to go even one step further and say, what is the nature of this individual? What kind of activities will this person do? And accordingly, they used to give a name. Unlike in today's world, unfortunately, we have like all kinds of funny names, say, somewhere I was saying Lovely School. The school is called Lovely School, as in our, Happy, Mini, I don't know. All kinds of funny names without really any meaning. But previously, that was not how it was. It used to be very, the people used to be mindful about everything they do, right? That's the beauty of Vedic culture. Vedic culture was not mindless. In fact, today we look at Vedic culture and say, they were so old fashioned. Actually, they were not old fashioned. They were very, very much advanced than what we are, what we can even imagine to be. Right. So here there are two beautiful names, right? One is Gudakesha, one is Rishikesha. So Rishikesha, I think we already discussed Rishikesha, right? He's the master of the senses. So Rishikesha is Krishna, he's the master of the senses. So we have to use our senses in the service of its master. We have to use our senses in the service of Krishna. But today, like thieves, we are using these senses in our own service for, trying to gratify our own senses. And this is not going to make us happy. We will discuss this further, right? In fact, this is the illusion in which this whole world is. So what we are thinking is, if I can satisfy my own senses, I can be happy, isn't it? So if there is an option between gratifying my senses and gratifying, say, my spouse's senses or my children's senses or my friend's senses, what will he say? First thing we'll say is gratify my senses, right? So typical example, if suppose say somebody has cooked some food, at home, say my wife has cooked some food, and as soon as we taste that food, we say, this is less, that is more, something else could have been in some other way, etc. Why? Because we are trying to gratify our senses, right? And similarly, if you are sleeping, one person wants fan, the other person doesn't want fan. I'll say, no, I want fan. Right now, every person is completely living just centered around our own sense gratification. How can I gratify my senses? How can I be happy at every moment, even at the expense of others' happiness? Many times we don't even bother. We don't even think actually. Why should I gratify my senses? Why shouldn't I gratify somebody else's senses? Now, of course, and that's the reason today, and this whole thing about equality between man and women has come up, and women are fighting for their rights, etc., etc. Now we'll also discuss these things in the last part of this chapter, right? But this whole sense of gratify my senses all the time, we are trying to gratify our senses, right? So Arjuna very rightly, he's using the word Rishikesha. He is telling Krishna, you are supposed to gratify my senses, right? So though you are Rishikesha, you are supposed to gratify my senses. So please do whatever I want you to do. Right. So, and then Arjuna is referred to as Gudakesha. This is very, very important. Gudaka means sleep. Okay. And one who has conquered sleep and ignorance is called Gudakesha. One who has conquered both sleep and ignorance is called Gudakesha. Now, what is ignorance? The ignorance is this illusion that we are this body and that we are here to enjoy ourselves. This is illusion. Okay, so now we'll talk about this illusion. This illusion will start to get cleared up in the beginning of second chapter, as Krishna starts advising Arjuna. But the one person who has actually overcome this ignorance, that means that he knows that he's not this body. He knows that he's spirit soul. He knows that he's not here for enjoying his senses, but to actually rectify and go back to Krishna. One who knows this is actually overcome. He is a Gudakesha. He's overcome that ignorance. In fact, we sleep. Why do we sleep? We sleep because we are running, our body is running on material energy. Okay, this is a very interesting concept in spirituality. We are running with material energy, and our body requires certain amount of rest. Right now, spiritually, those who are spiritually elevated beings, elevated souls, they don't need material energy to run their body. They just run their body on spiritual energy, right? So our acharyas, who are called 6 Goswamis, they actually were sleeping only for 2 hours a day, and sometimes not even 2 hours. Right now, how can somebody run like that every day, day in and day out? And it's not like they were just chilling or taking some taking rest. No, they were busy propagating Krishna consciousness, writing so many books, etc., etc. Right? And still they were able to manage all this with 22 hours activity every day, right? And maybe 23 hours every day, right? Why? Because they are running on spiritual energy. And the sleep is actually many times, I remember, before when I was in college, those days or even early days of my work, I used to love to sleep. So much of time is wasted just sleeping. Why? Because we just feel happy sleeping. Oh, so nice. This happiness is also there, and it is called happiness in the mode of ignorance. So when we come to 16, 17, 18 chapters, we discuss all aspects of life in three modes: happiness in mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. So happiness that we derive out of sleep is called happiness in the mode of ignorance. Okay, so this sleep is such a nice thing. Most people love to sleep, right? And it's a gross waste of time, right? Nothing is achieved except for maybe laziness, because typically for a healthy body, actually not more than 6 hours sleep is required. We don't need more than 6 hours. 6 hours is adequate sleep. I talk to so many devotees, and they're saying I am sleeping for 7 hours, 8 hours. Not required. 6 hours is absolutely. I mean, try. If you have not done this, please try from tomorrow. Sleep for 6 hours, and if possible, maybe afternoon. This is another thing, right? People, we think about sleeping in the afternoon as unhealthy. Actually, it is the most healthy thing as per Ayurveda. So if in case you get a chance, say if you have 1 hour lunch break or something, right? Working people, so half an hour, say lunch, and immediately after half an hour, for half an hour, take a nap, right? And it's a power nap. Actually, it will rejuvenate you more than 2 hours of sleep. Right now that I'm talking about sleep, so some interesting facts. Actually, as per Ayurveda, the best time to sleep. Can anybody guess what is the best time in the night to sleep? What, between what time to what time is the best? As in, you don't need more. As in, the best part of the night to sleep. Anybody has any idea? Okay, so the best time actually is, so we are expected to sleep. If you're sleeping 6 hours, you expected to get up at Brahma Muhurta, which is roughly around 4:30. So 6 hours means, maximum you should hit the bed at 10:30, even that is late. As per Ayurveda, 10 to 1 is the best time to sleep. And I think, as per modern lifestyle, possibly people start sleeping at 12 o'clock or later. Right? And obviously then body doesn't get rest, though we think, okay, maybe then we get up at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. I mean, it's not just affecting our health, our mindset, our mental makeup. It affects everything. This is the beauty of Vedic way of life, right? Everything was regulated. Everything was to give the maximum outcome, best efficiency. Right? Right. So Gudakesha, so somebody who has even conquered sleep. So by spiritual practice, by the practice of bhakti, we can actually conquer sleep. We can conquer ignorance. All these are considered as lower modes. We call this as modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. There are three modes of nature, which means that all of us behave in these three modes. And we'll discuss what are the characteristics of these modes. How do we recognize who's in what mode, etc., etc. Right? And ignorance is the lowest. The lowest mode is ignorance. So sleep is also manifestation of ignorance. So basically, if we do bhakti, then we can overcome this lower mode of ignorance. In fact, the whole idea of any form of yoga, for that matter, is to move gradually from ignorance to passion, passion to goodness, and then we call what is called as pure goodness, which transcends goodness as well. So this is the direction, right? That one has to achieve. And in fact, you would experience, right, if you go and associate with somebody who's in perfect mode of goodness, some sadhu, saint, etc., you just sit around them and you feel like some energy, right? You come out and say, wow, I mean, this is amazing. Right? Why? Because they are actually running at a very pure level of energy, which is in sattva guna. Right? In that sattva guna or mode of goodness, it is all, the energy itself can be impactful. It can impact another person, right? Like, especially if you associate with a very spiritually advanced person, just by being around them, you feel happy. You feel some kind of, positivity and happiness, etc. Right? Because they're running in that. These are all energies, different types of energies, right? And this ignorance is the lowest mode, full of, basically unproductive. Right? And then passion is extremely productive, especially, right? All of us working, no time, no time, no time, busy, busy, busy. This is passion. All of us in this material world, in this Kali Yuga, we have no time for anything, isn't it? Anybody asks anything, the first answer that comes out is busy. I can't make it. Let me check my schedule. Right? I have to check with my spouse. I don't know. Maybe we are going here. We are going there. And so we are so busy, bees. Right? And then goodness, mode of goodness is they're not so like, they don't have time to breathe. They do their work, but very cool, composed. What they are doing it for, etc., etc., and they're in complete control of their emotions, and they're full of knowledge. So many of these things we will discuss in the later chapter. So here Arjuna is being addressed as Gudakesha. So though he had overcome ignorance and sleep, by the Lord's desire, he's been put into ignorance. So this whole, his forgetfulness about his own, who he is and what his duty is, because he's, we are all eternal servants of Krishna, and our duty is to serve Krishna. Now Arjuna forgot this momentarily by Krishna's desire, right? And so in spite of that, Sanjay is calling him Gudakesha, just to make a point, saying that, hey, he was actually Gudakesha. He was just put into that ignorance by the Lord. So devotee can conquer, Prabhupada says, devotee can conquer both sleep and ignorance simply by thinking of Krishna constantly. See, this is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. This is why we call it Krishna consciousness, right? Krishna consciousness means just being conscious about Krishna all the time. Just be conscious about Krishna all the time. Right? And just by being conscious of Krishna all the time, we overcome all these lower modes. In fact, you might have heard of the word samadhi. Samadhi basically means that anyone who is constantly thinking about Krishna is in samadhi. It's not that, we have to give up our body and go and sit underground somewhere and without eating, drinking. No, not like that. If we are just always thinking about Krishna, then we are in samadhi. This is called samadhi. Actually, we'll discuss this in second chapter, end of second chapter. Okay, so Arjuna, who is Gudakesha, is calling Krishna as Rishikesha and saying, Rishikesha has, though he is the master of the senses, he's agreed to follow the orders of Arjuna and draws the chariot between the armies of both the parties. Verse 25. Bhishma Drona Pramukatah Sarvesham cha Mahikshitam Uvacha Partha Pashyaitan Samavetan Kuruniti. In the presence of Bhima, Drona, and all the other chieftains of the world, the Lord said, just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here. So here Krishna is just following Arjuna's order, takes the chariot between the two parties, and then says, very, like a friend, Krishna is kind of mocking at Arjuna. Behold, you wanted to see, no, see, you are all standing here. Because Krishna knew what is going to happen next. Right, so in anticipation, he's kind of making a little, little bit of fun as a friend, right? Not in any negative way. Right, so he's saying, I agree to be your charioteer. I have done whatever you said. Now let's see what you are going to do, right? So verse 26. Tatra pashyat sitan partha pitrin nata pitamahan acharyan matulan bhratrin putran pautran sakim stata swashuran suraschaiva sena yorvayorapi. Now Arjuna is seeing all his, friends and family. He's seeing his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, father-in-laws, well-wishers, everybody. Pretty much everybody whom he wanted, whom we normally live for, isn't it? We live for all these people. We live for our family. We live for our relatives. We live for our friends. Now just imagine Arjuna's position. All these people whom normally people live for, he had to actually stand against them and kill them. What a predicament. I mean, we might be thinking, we might be looking at our life's problems and saying, oh my God, such a big problem. Can we even imagine, what Arjuna is going through? What a kind of problem he's facing, right? And in spite of that problem, the beauty is that, Arjuna surrenders to Krishna and asks Krishna, saying, Krishna, I don't know what I need to do. Please tell me, right? But what we do, we will just, we will figure out our own way. We don't go to Krishna when we have problems. We are expected to go to Krishna, take his guidance through Shastra. right? But that was the beauty of Arjuna. He was facing the biggest problem we can ever imagine to face, right? And he's having to face such a big problem. Verse 27, Tan samikshasa kaunteya sarvan bandhu navastitan kripaya paraya visto vishidan idam abrabit. Now, when he saw all these different, all these friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion. He became overwhelmed with compassion, right? So this is the beginning of Arjuna's reasons. So Arjuna is going to now start giving reasons why he should not fight. So till now, he saw people on both sides, and then he's saying, oh, Krishna, in his mind, he's thinking, I am not going to fight, right? And now he's going to make very logical arguments. Actually, think about this. Normally when we are in any kind of distress, when we are in trouble, we lose our logic. We become sentimental, emotional. We don't have control over our mind. We don't have control over intelligence. I'm sure all of us would have experienced this, right? But Arjuna is so powerfully, he's fixed himself in logic, right? He's fixed himself in logic, and he's trying to explain. He's trying to reason out, saying that, Krishna, I don't think I should be fighting, and these are my reasons, right? And in fact, these are all the best of best shastras, Dharma Shastra, Artha Shastra. He quotes a lot of them, right? All on the material platform. Now we will now start differentiating material platform and spiritual platform. Now Arjuna's argument is completely perfect logical argument on the material platform. But then, Arjuna, Krishna then just dismisses it, saying that, this is useless, right? This is not going to help, right? So we will go through Arjuna's arguments, right? So verse 28, Arjuna vacha drispve mam swajanam Krishna yuyutsum samupustitam sidanti mama gatrani mukham cha parishushati. So Arjuna is saying, seeing Krishna, seeing all these friends and relatives who are present before me, they are in such a fighting spirit. I'm also come here to fight, but I feel my limbs of my body quivering and my mouth is drying up. So Arjuna is actually completely filled with compassion. Now, what is this compassion? So compassion means just, feeling, that somebody deserves something more, or, that this is not right for somebody. Right? So Arjuna was feeling, that, oh, why should these people be killed? They shouldn't be killed, right? I am the person who would be responsible for killing them. So I don't want to kill them. I want to be compassionate towards them. I want to understand that though they have come in a fighting spirit, I don't want to kill them, right? But his emotions were so powerful that he's actually, his whole shivering, his body is shivering. Can we imagine? I don't know if any of us have experienced this kind of shivering of body, right? Extreme emotions, extreme, sometimes, extreme fear. People might have experienced something like this, right? Or something completely unbelievable has happened, and just imagine he's going through these kind of powerful emotions, right? And his mouth is dried up. He's not able to say anything or speak. He's saying, my mouth is dried up, right? And Prabhupada says, actually in the purport, he says, he's looking at Arjuna, the description, you can even imagine saying that he might be crying. As a Kshatriya, he was one of the most powerful Kshatriyas of his time. He even, defeated Shiva to get Pashupatastra. Right now, and he fought against Devatas who are more powerful. So many, accolades for Arjuna. But now he's literally that Kshatriya who could fight in any situation. He's now standing, looking at all his relatives, and he's shaking. And there are tears in his eyes. Right now, Prabhupada gives a beautiful description. There's one beautiful verse from Bhagavatam that he quotes. I'll chant that. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatya kinchana sarvair gunays tatra samasate surah harava bhaktasya kuto mahad kunad manorathena sati bhadhavato bahihi. So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavata Purana. So Prabhupada is saying here, Arjuna's weakness was because he was very soft-hearted. He had great qualities. Why he had great qualities? Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana means one who has akinchana, unflinching faith, unflinching devotion to the Lord. Sarvair gunes tatra samasate suraha. All the great qualities that suraha, the demigods have, will be present in this person. Sarvair gunair, all the qualities, great qualities, are going to be present in this person. Now, but compared to harav abhaktasya kuto mahat gunat. Now, compared to abhakta, abhakta means one who is not a devotee, one who is maybe materially very well qualified, very well read, maybe accomplished, so, big position, lot of money, whatever you consider as great achievements on the material platform. Saying harav abhaktasya kuto mahat gunat. He's saying even if somebody has everything materially that one could accomplish, what great quality is there in that person? Bhagavatam is saying, what great quality? Kuto mahat gunat. What great quality is there? Manorathena sati dhavato bahihi. See, this is the beauty. This verse summarizes the whole material action. This busy, busy, busy. What it is saying? Manorathena. Manoratha means what? Chariot of the mind. We are all roaming around in the chariot of the mind. Just leave your mind without doing anything. Just sit for 1 second, 5 seconds like this. Your mind is already gone somewhere, here, there, everywhere. Manoratha, it is like the chariot of the, we are just always sitting on the chariot of the mind. Going from one place to another. Sit in 5 seconds, we'll go to America, somewhere else we want to go. Just roaming all over. So he's saying Manorathena sati dhavato bahihi. So our mind, we are just sitting on this chariot of the mind and just roaming here and there. What is the value of this? There is no value of any qualities derived out of this mental speculation, just mind doing this, that, this. There is no value. There are no real qualities that one will develop by living a life like this. He's saying one who is a devotee develops all the good qualities, all the qualities that are wanted. Actually, subsequently, there's one verse which says that a devotee is liked by everybody and everybody likes a devotee. Devotee likes everybody and everybody likes a devotee. Why? Because a devotee has all the great qualities of saints, of devatas. And one, if, those who are materially accomplished, how much ever big, great accomplishments they might have, but human values, they don't have. They won't have the understanding of higher values, right? Even moral values won't be there, then higher values, so absolutely they don't have. Right? They won't even understand, like I said, I give this, simple example of giving, if you're giving some charity to a beggar on the street. Now, if I ask somebody saying, is this good? I don't know if I discuss this. I keep getting confused. I have Kannada and English class, so I don't know which one I discussed where. But did we discuss this? Is giving, charity to a beggar, is it good or bad? If I've discussed, please let me know so that, then I can discuss something. Otherwise, you can contribute. What do you think? Giving something to a beggar, is it good or bad? Those who have already heard this discussion, please don't participate. We will give others a chance.
Good, sir.
Okay, giving something for beggars is good. Okay, how many others? What do you say? Good, bad?
Good, sir. Giving something is good.
Giving something is good. Okay. Anybody who says bad? Anybody who says we shouldn't give? I am putting myself on that list. So just so that you don't think that it's a one-sided answer. It's not a one-sided question. Hi. So Padma Mataji, you think it's not good?
Yes, it's not good.
It's not good. Okay. Janani?
I am neutral, sir.
50-50.
Because I don't know. I mean, that really depends on who's asking for the alms.
If
it's also the intent of the person, so that we can't decipher from the looks and all of that. So.
Okay. So let me ask a more, let me simplify that scenario. You're at a traffic signal. Okay. And somebody is coming at your, car or bike or whatever, right? And saying, they're begging. Okay. More specific scenario. Good or bad?
Sir, even if they are cheating us, if we feel good giving them, it is good, sir.
Okay. Janani, your response? This was discussed in Kannada session. Okay, thank you. Somebody, okay, not in English session. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so Janani, what is your response now?
So, I mean, while I have given earlier a couple of times, but I heard some horror stories behind that. So this morning also, I happened to encounter a small boy asking me to buy a pen, and not just in the traffic signal, just near the gate. I was divided. Before I could freeze and think of what I should do, he left. But nevertheless, it left me with that question, whether it was right or wrong.
So we are discussing your question, your dilemma today. Okay, so those who are saying it is good, can you say why? Quickly. I mean, we don't have much time, but why is it good? So some Meena Mataji said, okay, like we feel good, so it is good. Okay, that's one
reason. We feel we are helping them, sir. So,
yeah, so we
feel good to give.
So this is a very important, choice of words. I feel I am helping them, so it is good. Okay, because this is very important. We are feeling that we are helping them. Okay, those who said no, Padma Mataji, you want to say, substantiate why you don't think it is good?
We don't know how they are using it.
We don't know how they are using it. Very important point. See, this is the beauty, right? See, about consciousness right now. So I don't know how many of you are aware, right? In Bangalore, there is something called as a beggars colony. Okay, so my brother-in-law is a social worker, and he works very closely with all these institutions. Now, this beggars colony was actually set up so that people can stop begging, and they can actually do some work, occupation. So they are given work from whatever 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock, etc., and they get paid for it. They get paid reasonably well, right? I mean, which obviously they won't need to beg at all. But interestingly, these people run away from these beggar colonies. Why do they run away? Because they don't want to work. They've figured out easy way of earning a living, which is begging. And they don't have any of this, shame, self-respect, this, that, and all that. So they just come and they think, okay, begging is easy. I'll just stand at a signal and, out of like 50 bikes there or vehicles that are there, somebody like, I'll get 10 rupees. Like that in a day, I get 100 rupees. Right now, for that, why do I have to sit and, work so hard? Right now, the other thing is, we know that most people misuse money, right? Especially people who are, not the educated kinds, etc. Most people use their money to drink and then beat their family if they have one, or misuse that money, right? Now, the whole intention that you are giving this money to this person is thinking that, maybe he or she doesn't have food to eat, right? Let me give this person so that he can, fend for himself or herself. Right, but rightly pointed, we don't know how this money is going to get used. So normally what I do, I try to do is I keep some prasadam. I keep from fruits, banana, apple, whatever is there, right? Something extra if I have in my car or vehicle. And if somebody comes begging, then I generally try to give prasadam. I don't give money. I never give money, right? Either I give prasadam or, yesterday day before I was thinking, if I don't have, and like somebody came begging, blind people. So I thought, I should somehow, see if I can connect them to a temple where they can give food. They'll get free food. Anybody, please, if you want somebody to get free food, please tell me. We'll give them prasadam. We'll send them to the temple. Every day they'll be given prasadam. No problem. Right? But we want to, so this is about this social welfare. See, this feeling of doing good, we should understand. See, it's not important if we just feel good. Actually, it should deliver that goodness to that person. Otherwise, this is very surface level. We are trying to help at a very surface level. So my way of charity, or Krishna conscious way of charity, is to give them Krishna consciousness, right? And normally if we tell them saying chant, they don't. So we'll say, take prasadam. Come to the temple, take prasadam. I have prasadam, I give you prasadam. Right? So we understand saying, that, this whole quality is good quality, right? I mean, it is not materially, we just think that, doing some of these are, I mean, I'm calling it surface level because it doesn't go deeper than that, right? If I want to really help some person, I will make sure that that person will not become a beggar again. See, we should understand this, why this person has become a beggar. Not by choice. If he was born in a reasonable family, good family, Many a times they don't even know who their parents are, their, urchins, etc. because of their past karma. So what is our desire? Change their karma phala. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vrajam tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma sucha. Krishna is saying, I will take away all your karma phala. Just surrender to me. So we want to enable them, put them on that path. So we want to bring them to Krishna consciousness. We want to bring them to prasadam. We want to bring them into kirtan. Purify their existence. Give them food as well. Give them seva. Give them some work, which they will do, which will purify them. And we will do long-term good, which no materialist can do. No material person can do this. We can give some money maybe and that's it. And that's not doing any good to anybody. So please, all of you, make it a point, make it a habit. Every day before you go out, please offer some fruits. If you're not still in the habit of offering all your food, at least you can start offering your fruits to Krishna. Keep those fruits with you when you go out. Anywhere you feel your heart is, like, I want to do something this person, just take those fruits and give it. I've seen many times these people don't want fruit, they don't want food, they want only money, because they are not looking at, eating. Their intent is something else. Then by just that we will know that, what kind of a person you are giving charity to. Right? So like this, these qualities, actually a devotee looks at the long-term, Shreyas. This is called Shreyas. We'll discuss this word in the second chapter. Shreyas is something that is best outcome for that person, right? Prayas is temporary happiness. We want permanent happiness for all living entities, right? So as devotees, we should always try to give best to everybody, best outcome, right? And the best outcome is bhakti. There is no outcome better than bhakti. So here Bhagavatam is saying that, only a devotee who has unflinching, as in he is completely dependent on the Lord, complete full faith that Krishna is the only goal of life, that my aim is to surrender to him, my aim is to serve him. Only that person knows what is right, what is wrong. Otherwise, we are just on this manoratha, on this mental, like, what we were discussing. I think maybe it is correct. I think maybe it is wrong. I feel it is right. I feel it is wrong. What is the basis for this? Is there any basis for our decision making? There is no basis. It's just my own concoction. That is why it is called manoratha. It is my own mental platform. And many times people say, I don't care. This is how I am. Fine, as in I'm saying, it's their choice. But actual behavior needs to be based on Shastra. Our behavior, each and every decision we make, if each and every, even each and every scenario we, encounter in our life, the way we react should be based on Shastra. This is what Bhagavad Gita is teaching us. Right? So the point I was making here is that, such a, great personality, Arjuna, though he had to fight, his duty was to fight, he was pushed into a situation of ignorance, and he's saying, no, I don't want to fight. I don't want to do my duty. Right? Why is he doing that? Because Krishna is going to reveal Bhagavad Gita to us through him. He is the agent. Krishna doesn't engage with any person and everybody. Krishna only engages with pure people, pure souls. So he engages only with pure devotees. So Arjuna is one such pure devotee. A pure devotee has overcome all these lower modes of ignorance, passion, goodness, etc. But by the Lord's will, Arjuna has been pushed into this mode of ignorance. And he is behaving like us. Now, if you look at it, actually, but he was superior us, as in he was the best of material, best of material logic he gives, which no logician, no logic will be so well-rounded now, like he's going to give. Right? So the first reason he's giving is, I feel for them. Right? I feel for them. I think I will be doing wrong by killing them. So I don't want to be killing. I want, and just by the thought of it is, my mouth is drying up. I feel it's a very costly act. I don't want to be doing this. Why would anybody want to kill anybody else, especially their own relatives? Yes, enemies I kill. I'm a Kshatriya. I'm used to killing enemies, but I'm not used to killing my own family. So this is the first argument he's making. Out of compassion, I can't kill my own family people out of compassion. So this is the first logical argument. And when we look at, like I said, when you look at Arjuna's argument, you just feel, yes, he's right. He's right. And then, we'll be wondering when Krishna just denounces all this and says, nonsense. All this is nonsense logic you are giving. Doesn't work. Doesn't make sense. Right? So this is the first reason. Then he continues, Vepatascha sharire me roma hachascha jayate gandhi vamsam sate hastat vakchaiva paridahyate, saying my body is trembling, my hair is standing on end, my bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning. So complete, he's like overcome by emotions, right? Actually here in the purport, actually this Gandiva also, there is this one, right? Gandiva, Arjuna had taken a vow saying that anybody who is going to ask him to drop his Gandiva, he would kill. And once what happened during the battle of Kurukshetra, Yudhishthira is beaten very badly, in the battle, and he's taken back to his camp. And when Arjuna comes to know about it, he runs. He just leaves the battle and goes, because he's very dear to Yudhishthira is very dear to him. So he goes to Yudhishthira's camp and to find out how he was doing. And as soon as Yudhishthira sees Arjuna, he says, have you killed, the enemy who put me into this situation? But Arjuna says, no, Yudhishthira, and as brother, no, I've come here because I was worried. How are you doing? And then Yudhishthira actually, in that whole excitement of the war, then he says, you are a worthless warrior. Just drop your Gandiva bow, right? You don't deserve to be a Kshatriya. And because Arjuna had taken a vow saying that anybody who asks him to give up his Gandiva, he is going to actually kill them. Now he was in such a dilemma. I mean, he had to kill his own brother, whom he loved so much. Of course, then Arjuna, Krishna is there. Krishna is the savior of all devotees, all times. Right? Krishna is there and he gives Arjuna way. He says, Arjuna, you have to kill him. Actually, with the elder, with a superior, just if you use very harsh words and be very curt with them, that is as worse than killing. So just speak very harshly with Yudhishthira, and then you would have taken care of your woe, and at the same time you wouldn't have killed Yudhishthira literally. And Arjuna then puts out his heart and says real harsh, curt words, and then immediately he falls at Yudhishthira Maharaj's feet and says, I'm very sorry, I just did this because of the vow that I had taken. Please pardon me. And then everything is restored. Like this, we can understand saying that even speaking harshly with elders or superiors is not, is worse than death, actually, it is said. And I know, and unfortunately, most of us, we are not trained in these aspects. And, we just do left, right, and center. We do however we want. We deal with people however we want. Anyway, so this Arjuna, who couldn't even, his own brother telling him he couldn't tolerate it. Now just look at his position. He himself is, his Gandiva slipping from his hand. What a helpless situation he's in. Verse 30. Na cha shaknomi avasthatum brahmati vacha me manaha nimittani cha pashyami viparitani keshava. I'm now unable to stand here any longer. I'm forgetting myself. And my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune. Oh, killer of the Kesi demon. So this is another reason Arjuna is giving. Misfortune. Why would I want to do anything which will bring me misfortune? Isn't it? Don't we think like that? Anything we want to do, we say, is it going to bring me good fortune? Then I will do. Right? So Arjuna is saying that, yeah, this looks like it's only going to give me misfortune. Why should I be doing this? And there's a beautiful word here is called viparitani. Viparitani means I expect, left, I get right. Which means I expect something, I just get the complete opposite. Or I don't get what I want. So, that happens to us also, right? When we are trying to do something and, we don't get what is expected, then we become very frustrated. We think like, why is this? This is not good for me. This is not what I wanted, right? And then we want to give up that activity. I will not do this, right? So Arjuna is in that position. He's saying, no, this looks like it's going to bring me misfortune. I'm not going to do this, right? And in the purport, Prabhupada writes one beautiful statement. This is the beauty of Prabhupada. He just opens us to the understanding of the verse, right? So he says, excessive attachment for material things puts a man in such a bewildering condition of existence. So Arjuna was bewildered. He didn't know, no, should I fight? Should I not fight? Now he's giving arguments. No, I don't think I should fight. These are the reasons. Why? Prabhupada is giving the insight. Why people are put into such bewildered condition? Because of excessive attachment for material things. We are too attached to material things. Me, mine, everything is about me and mine. Right? Because when we become too attached to material things, We become bewildered and then we cannot take the right decisions. How do we understand this? Suppose say there is a situation, when we are put into a situation, we can't find the solution for our problem. But if the same situation, if somebody else is put into, we will go and give them advice. Have we experienced this in our life? Right? We are usually, we are very logical when it comes to a problem which we are not dealing with, right? Which somebody else is dealing with. We become the best of logicians, best of friends, best of guides. But when the same situation or similar situation comes upon us, yes, Supriya, you have experienced it, you're saying.
Yes.
Right? So, when we are faced with a situation, we cannot apply the same logic, same clarity of thought, same intelligence. It's all the same. It's not changed between me experiencing it and somebody else experiencing it. But just because of those strong emotions that we get stuck into, we cannot think clearly. We cannot think clearly. Right? So which is why, this is one golden rule, okay? Golden rule of decision making. Don't take decisions when you're in distress. Don't take decisions when you're in distress. Okay, generally I'll come to your question and then please remind me if I forget. Okay, so please don't take any important decisions when you're distressed, when you're in anger, when you are emotional. Most people, they have one little fight and then suddenly husband and wife say, okay, I'm going to give you divorce. Why? Because in that heat of that, emotion, we cannot control ourselves. There is no logic that will prevail. It's just emotion from start to end. And emotion just always gives us misery. Okay. So here Prabhupada is saying, Bhayam Dvitiya Vinivesha Tatsyat. He's saying this fearfulness and loss of mental equilibrium takes place in persons who are too affected by material conditions. They're too materially attached. We lose something and then we can't, control ourselves. Oh, how can I lose this? And then we are rewinding and rewinding. Okay, another golden rule of life. Please make a note. This will go a long way in, actually making life more peaceful. Don't rewind. Please write this boldly. Don't rewind. What does this mean? What do we normally do in life? We rewind. What does rewind mean?
Replay unpleasant experiences more.
Not just unpleasant. Generally, like for example, yesterday, something we had planned, saying that you should have done this. No, for some reason it didn't happen. Again, next day we'll say, see, I told you should have done this, isn't it? Oh, then we did something and we got some other outcome. So, oh, I think I should have done that. Isn't it? Don't we think like this? How much of us live in the past? How much of us live in the future? How much of us live in the present? The amount of time we spend in the past is rewinding. People who are introspective, they live in the present. People who are too ambitious or worried or any kind of extreme emotions, they live in the future. Right? As in, we hardly live in the present. Right? And rewinding is one major cause of dissonance, unhappiness. So something that we had to do yesterday is done and dusted and over. But we want to again go back. Oh, this happened like this. If at all I had done this, if at all that, if this person had, if he had not said like this, if she had not done like this, ifs and buts. Rewind. Please stop rewinding your life. Live in the present and, think about what can be done nicely, right? Instead of either or, we are too anxious about our future. So what will happen 10 years in, 15 years in, something we'll be thinking. Something again out of control, not in the current, time zone, something, unrealistic or unwanted at this point of time. So we don't really, that is why it is called Manoratha. This chariot keeps going, backwards, forwards. We don't live in the present. So we are not conscious. We are not clear in our thought process. So many things happen. Right? Like I said, bhakti actually cleans up all this mess in us. We are messed up because of our mind, very simply put. And bhakti straightens out the mind. Actually, it just throws mind out of the picture, right, in a different way. Right, so viparitani. So he's saying, this. So Prabhupada is saying that this don't have too much of excessive attachment to anything material. Right, we're not saying stop loving your family, friends, etc., etc. I'm not saying that. We'll come to this topic subsequently. Right, it's a very important topic, but it's about excessive attachment. Attachment is okay. Excessive attachment is not good. Okay, so we have to draw a line. Now, obviously, question will be, what is the difference between attachment and excessive attachment? All that we will understand in course of time, right? So, and because of this excessive attachment to his own, bodily conception, right? Arjuna doesn't want to kill. He's saying, these are my relatives. So he's come to the bodily conception. He's looking at everybody as his relatives, friends, related to this body in this life. It's called bodily conception of life. Material attachment. Friends, family, too much attachment. So he is now forgotten that he is a spirit soul, that he is a servant of Krishna, that he has to serve Krishna. He is forgotten. Okay, and and then he says, one last verse will go. Nacha shreyonu pashyami hatva swajanamahave nakankshe vijayam Krishna nacha rajyam sukkanicha. He's saying, I'm not seeing any good fortune from this. I don't want any kingdom, happiness, nothing. I don't want to kill anybody in this battle because I'm not going to get there's nothing good coming out of it, isn't it? Everything we do, we want something good coming out of it. So Arjuna is saying, no Shreya, there is nothing good coming out of this. I don't see any good coming out of this. So I don't want this battle. So he's talked about compassion. He's talked about misfortune, right? And he's talking about no good. Nothing good is going to come out of it, right? And then we're going to get into subsequent arguments that Arjuna gives from the next verse. Okay, so this is, so we covered from 23 to 31 today. Okay, so there's one question. Okay, since Vedic times, Dan, charity is considered a virtue and a good deed. In the example we discussed, are we referring only to begging or including other forms of charity? Okay, so this is a good question. Actually, in Bhagavad Gita, 17th or 18th chapter, I don't exactly remember. No, can't remember. So there are charities in 3 modes. Again, like I said, everything we talk about is in 3 modes. Okay, let me see if I can. Just give me a second. Yeah, chapter 18. Hmm? 17 point. Yeah. So this is 17th chapter, verse 20, 21, and 22. Okay. Verse 20 is saying charity given out of duty, okay, without expectation of return, at the proper time and place, and to a worthy person, is considered to be in the mode of goodness. Okay, this is charity in the mode of goodness. Now, very important criteria. First, there should not be any expectation of return. It should be done as a matter of duty. Second, it should be done at a proper time and place. Okay, proper time. We don't look at time at all. We say any time is good time. No, proper time, proper place, and to a worthy person. And Prabhupada in the purport actually he clarifies, right? Worthy person is one who is actually engaged in spreading the glories of the Lord, right? It's a devotee or an institution which is promoting devotional service, right? And so if we, like I said, if you want to give charity to somebody, associate that person to the temple, give him prasadam, etc. Right? This is actually charity which is even in the mode of above goodness, right? Then charity in the mode of passion, charity performed with expectation of some return, or with the desire for fruitive results, or in a grudging mood. Sometimes we say somebody is like pestering us, just take it and go. Right? This is mode of passion. It's said to be in the mode of passion. Then charity in the mode of ignorance. Charity performed at an impure place, at an improper time, to unworthy persons, or without proper attention and respect. Please note this. Without proper attention and respect is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Right? So everything, every activity that we do, every aspect of our behavior is in three modes. Right? So now, obviously, orphanage, senior citizen home, educating a child. Now, I mean, if you look at it, it possibly somewhere between, I mean, technically speaking, it's very difficult to classify because there are so many criteria here, like place, time, person. So again, it's a generic question, cannot be answered very specifically. But even if we do it in a meaningful way, possibly it will be in one of these lower modes. Because goodness means actually giving it to a person. See, that worthy person is not one who is in material need. Worthy person is one who can actually, like I said, if somebody can change somebody else's life, doing charity for that kind of a person is considered better than a person who is using it for himself or herself, right? So yes, highest mode of charity is to give it to Krishna conscious people or institutes which are promoting Krishna consciousness. Next level could be some of these orphanage, senior citizen home, etc., but with a very clear understanding of what they are trying to achieve. Right? See, because please understand one thing, right? How much ever you do on the material platform, it's not going to change their life. So what we do, for example, in ISKCON, what we do, if somebody says, there's an orphanage, we say, yes, we want to go. We go to that orphanage. We do kirtan. We give them an understanding. We help them, give them, make them learn chanting. We tell them, please chant every day. We serve prasadam, beautiful prasadam, nice prasadam. And we say, we'll come back to you. Every month we'll come if you want. Now, this is engaged social service, not just giving money and that's the end of my job, right? So, and giving them something that they will not get at all. They are not going to get prasadam. They are not going to be able to chant. They are not going to be able to get out of this situation that they've gotten themselves into because of their previous karma, right? So, if you want to do something in these places, please let me know. Okay, I will organize things. Right? I mean, we do a lot of this from ISKCON because we want to give give the ultimate benefit to people. Huh? Yeah, we do, like, for example, in, Kartik month, Damodar Aarti, we go to schools, orphanages, hospitals, senior citizen homes, prisons. Imagine, just we go to prison, right? Why? We want to permanently rectify those people. So real social welfare work is done through Krishna consciousness, right? So don't give money, please call me and tell me, you want to do this, I want to sponsor, I want to spend some money here. Can you please take care of this? Can you please organize some program, give them some prasadam, give them this, I want to give this much money. Absolute perfect charity. Perfect charity. Please repeat the verse which you just read now, 17.202122. 17.20, 17.21, 17.22. Right. So this is the vision of actually higher level of service, higher level of social welfare work. Right, is to make sure that people don't have to suffer again, don't have to go through the same problems in life again. Me going and feeding that person one day, or giving that some education to the child, no, there is no guarantee that it's going to do anything worthwhile for that individual, right? And many a times these institutions, they say something, do something else, and so many things, right? Better just give them something beyond this, normal material welfare work, right? Give them something spiritual, which not only, see, the beauty about spiritual, right, is Prabhupada says, saying that, one who is spiritually progressing, material things are anyway taken care. We don't have to worry. See, if somebody is spiritually progressing, Krishna says, Ananya Chintayanto Ma Yajuna Paripasate, Tesham Nitya Viyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamyam. Krishna will take care of Yogakshema, of whatever is required for that person. So, giving spiritual means material welfare is included. But giving material welfare means it doesn't include spiritual welfare. And material welfare is temporary. Spiritual welfare is permanent, long term. goes beyond even this body, even beyond this life for that matter. Right, so we'll discuss these topics. I mean, this is the re-spiritualization, the only orientation of our thinking that Bhagavad Gita brings. Actually, 16th, 17th, 18th chapters are like amazing. It just rewrites everything about what we thought about life, right? In general, every aspect, happiness, determination, charity, work. I mean, pretty much you name the topic and it just redefines everything. It just gives you clearly, okay, mode of passion, mode of ignorance, mode of goodness. And then Bhagavatam talks about mode of transcendence, right? As in how our activity is done when we cross all these three modes, right? So it's very beautiful. A lot of good guidance we get from Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so I'll stop here unless there are any other questions. Okay, looks like. Okay, so is anybody come here for the first time this week?